to see. I gave up on counting episodes, so we're just gonna start a new season one or season two. Sorry, season two, episode one. Garrison Talks. As always, it's still your host, Adam Slaber, back with Matt. How are you?
Doing all right, yeah. So we definitely are starting up with season 2 here. So mostly so we can get back into a rhythm of being regular on recording.
Yeah,
So it has more to do with us and our lives and our schedules than anything else.
it's totally not that. I forgot what episode we're on for like the
Yeah.
umpteenth time.
Totally not. Totally
Totally
not.
not. Totally not.
We'll check numbers, shuffle some things, and yeah, totally.
Yeah, I guess a little bit with season two. It seemed fitting because of new points, meaning new seasonal legion. So, it's a little fitting there, and it's also after our too long of a break. It's probably a good idea just to help us get more into more of a consistent schedule, putting out episodes every other week now. I think is what we said. Just
That's our goal.
because so we're hoping to do it every other week now instead of every week, just because it's easier for us to keep up with content, and fit time in for college student and parent lives and everything else. So
Yes.
um, so season two, episode one, as mentioned, we got new points. I think the other thing I would like to talk on before we get into all of these changes is the Indy Open is happening. I believe it will be happening tomorrow from when we release this, which is going to be
Yeah.
exciting.
So hopefully this should be out on Thursday. Fingers crossed. So the Indy Open is June 16th and 17th here in Indianapolis. We currently have 53 tickets sold. And I think we have around 47 people on Game Uplink, so still missing a few, but we'll see if they bleed in or not. So it should be a really big event. It'll be a lot of fun. We will be streaming it on our Twitch page at Indy Garrison on Twitch TV. So there's a link for it. We'll post it when we post this episode. But feel free to check it out if you can't make it. Just kind of catch the game. We'll be streaming 2 days of it. So
yeah. Exciting part about us streaming it is that we're going to have one of our buddies, Joe, aka Cass on the Discord, has been trying to fiddle with a new streaming UI, which I think is supposed to be more intuitive than a web-based one, because I believe it's designed to be like run through Java instead of as like a Chrome application. So I think hopefully we'll have that to show off too. But yeah, see you there, I guess.
yeah,
All right. My mind is on points because points have come out and erratas
Adam's
have
all
come
about
out.
the points.
I have built so many lists in the past week because we are a week late. So we've got a lot to talk about.
We sure do.
So the one thing I want to talk about first, before we get into points, straight up points, is the erratas that came out, because I figured that's probably the easiest way to go about it.
Sure, sounds good.
Smaller subjects, how that works. So there was a new errata document, which had a ton of rules, but majority of those rules were just clarifications from forum rulings and like things that were just decided on like the Discord and everything, and just kind of like ways people were playing. But there were two kind of like important ones, two important erratas, and then two that were kind of like expected to happen. The two that were more or less expected to happen were Operative Blizzard is no longer allowed in Blizzard Force, and the other one was that you can no longer Guardian units unstoppable, aka Dark Trooper units. So, kind of expected changes. Kind of nice changes to see though, because it helps with the points that we'll get into. But yeah, hopefully it'll help bring down those Dark Trooper units and those and Blizzard Force. I don't know if Matt, you got any thoughts on those, or is that just kind of expected?
Yeah. So I think most of that is pretty expected. I mean, if you've listened to any of the other podcasts during our hiatus, you've heard, Fifth Trooper guys and everyone else, and even the Legion Discord's talking about how much they wanted Blizzard Force to be nerfed, specifically Operative Vader being taken out. So I think that was pretty expected. I was hoping to see a little bit more with the unconcerned keyword. The fact that they went up in points and they um, can't use Guardian on them now seems like it was hopefully enough, but maybe not quite.
Yeah,
I would have liked to see something to mess with the fact that they double activate, but I'm just not sure that
I think
AMG wanted to do that to their brand new product.
the one thing I would have liked to see a little bit farther, it is a good step in the right direction, as you said, but I think the thing I wanted to see the most was that they can't interact with trooper objectives like every other vehicle,
Mm,
which is like a little bit too far to make them like a little too samey, potentially, because like it's a fun idea to have a heavy unit that can interact with every objective and plays like a trooper unit, because that's kind of like the main thing that makes them unique. But it's either you nerf that or you change how they interact with objectives, as you said. But yeah,
yeah.
that's still a good step in the right direction.
Yeah, and sorry, I was moving things around a little bit. Did you mention choke and force
I
choke
was
being
gonna
changed?
I just said the other two first.
Okay.
So the two important ones, one significantly more important than the other, is that well, first of all, pivot on a vehicle with a damage condition token, which is the one where it takes 2 actions to do anything. Or no, it's the move one, I believe.
Disabled. Yeah.
Disabled, yes, that one. Um, pivot is now only 1 action instead of 2.
Yeah, meaning
So
so an ATSD or whatever it would be AAT, if it's disabled, it
any
can spend
any
one
front,
action to move and then shoot still. So
yeah.
even if it's
So
stuck
which
in
is
place.
yeah, it's really big for those in certain situations. So
Hmm.
like hopefully we see more vehicles. I don't think that's going to be a change that brings back vehicles though. But the super duper important one here is that force choke now targets a unit, not a miniature. So essentially, what this means is that force choke is no longer the only way, is like not the unique way of targeting a specific mini or heavy sniper or anything. Everything now functions the same way. So that means you can no longer force choke a unit leader for objectives. You can't choke out a heavy anymore, just in general. So it's kind of the death of force choke, but
I, I push back on that a little bit. I think the community's really just had a knee jerk reaction to that. I think this was a necessary change, and I think our Indy Garrison guys have talked about it quite a bit since the points come out. But I think part of it is with Inquisitors coming. If you can run a 2-man Inquisitor spot, squad, which is kind of what they've alluded to, with the Inquisitorious, kind of sister brotherhood. That means you could potentially run like 4 copies of that, which gets very dangerous and very dicey when you can just suddenly remove all the heavy weapons on the board for your opponent. Um, Plus, Force Choke has never been a great feels good mechanic. It's very thematic. It makes sense, but it also just never has felt great for your opponent. It's completely uninteractive. And so I'm not sad to see it leave the game. As someone who does a lot of teaching games for newer players, gets a lot of new people into the game, um, I'm not happy to. I'm not sad to see it be changed.
yeah. I think so. I will say that I agree that it's a good thing that have been changed. I do think that I would agree that it's a bit of a knee jerk reaction if it didn't also go up 5 points, because Force Choke, I guess, was our first points change, was also increased by 5 points, up to 10. So it's the same as Force Push and Barrier now, same as Burst of Speed. Um, and I think, quite honestly, in the same spots you're taking Force Choke, Burst and Barrier are probably just going to be more impactful.
Hmm,
So,
I could see
because,
that.
and then it's not a thing you're going to be wanting to pay 10 points for anymore. Over like the 5 points on your Jedi is not going to be worth it anymore. So that's why I think it's going to be done. But not yet. So like it'll be interesting
Yeah,
to see.
I
But
think force powers have always been kind of in a weird spot, like historically in this game, where like obviously everyone auto takes push just because it's so good and so impactful throughout the game. But as far as some of the other force powers, I mean, we have probably 15 force powers, but I only ever see 3 or 4. And so I think that just in general, overall, they're in kind of a weird spot. No one ever brings hope. No one ever brings, what's it, force barrier,
well, people
to
bring
move the
barrier.
barrier that you don't see that very often.
Yeah.
And so there's just a lot of force powers that hardly ever see play.
So
Um, so in general, overall, I think all the force powers really need a visitation to see how to make some of these lower priority powers an option.
I do think that's kind of more a problem of Legion as a whole, though, because you can say the same thing for almost every upgrade slot. Um, because you're not really seeing anything outside of, like, for example, offensive push and tenacity, and not even offensive push that much anymore. Like enter the fray for training slots, and then like improvised orders for command slots. So it's kind of just like I think it's just as a whole, the game is grown,
Yeah.
and we need the second edition, but that's a whole different conversation. That's what I can rant about for hours. I'm here to rant about a different thing for hours.
Huzzah.
So Force Choke, that nerf to Sith, it is what it is. Whether it's good whether it's good for the game or not, we'll see. But I guess from there we're just moving into points. I am gonna follow along with. I told you this before the episode, but I'm gonna follow along on our article that we have written over on IndianapolisGarrison.com, written by our very own Tyler Carnes, who we've kidnapped from Kentucky to be a part of the Indy Garrison. Hopefully, we'll be writing more articles there too. In this very scuffed plug.
That's right, Tyler. If those Hard Knocks guys are listening, we totally kidnapped you from them.
Yeah, just kidding. No, so hopefully there'll be more articles put out on that on our website over at IndianapolisGarrison.com in the near future. I know that you, Matt, actually wrote a new player's guide to Rebels, which
I
came
did.
out 10 hours ago from the time I have time of recording.
Yeah, so that's up on our site for people who are looking to jump into Rebels or even just looking to kind of brush the dust off now that the points have been updated. So that just kind of gives you a good idea of some units to jump back into or to pick up for the first time. It's not a comprehensive look just because factions are so big, but it does give you a good starting point to kind of springboard into the faction.
Yeah, so hopefully our articles will include more factions in the future, and then of course other things to talk about that are fun. So yeah, keep your eye out for that, I guess. So all right, let's get into Shadow Collective, because Shadow Collective didn't have too many changes, but they had good changes, I think.
Agreed.
So starting with the biggest kind of like points changes there was Gar Saxon went down 5 points from, I think he's down to 100 now. Let me tell you for sure in a second. Yeah, he's down to 100. You have Mandalorian Super Commandos down 5 points, and then each of their Gunslinger and Marksman upgrades down 2. So a
Don't they have a
Mandalorian.
third heavy weapon too?
They have Rookcast and
Okay.
the generic body.
Gotcha. Okay, so the generic and Rook didn't go down, but the other two did.
To be fair, those two also didn't need to go down because they've got their own things going on. But the
Right.
Gunslinger and Marksman are kind of like the general builds you're going to see for those units. And now a Super Commando unit, 70 points plus one of those heavies, is now 98 points when it was before. It was much more expensive, 105. So you're losing 7 points each on each of those. Yep. 5 points on Saxon, which is, I think, huge for them, the state that Shadow Collective is in.
Yeah, I do think that is significant. I definitely don't think Shadow Collective Mandos were nearly as bad as Rebel Mandalorians. Spoiler alert, we might be talking about them here soon. But yeah, it is nice to see some cuts on them. I think there were just very clear implications that Pikes and Black Suns were the best thing out of the Shadow Collective box, and so they are the things that have seen the most stable time by far. So these cuts are nice.
And then from there, moving on to Black Sun, the base unit went up 2 points from 48 to 50, and then Magnet Enforcers also went up from 16 to 18, um, which is a good nip in the bud for a lot of these Black Sun spam lists, like the one that Lila ran at Worlds that everyone would start like seeing and calling meta and whatnot. Um, that list went up 24 points. So it's just a good way to kind of bring back the spam. I think it's not going to really change those lists terribly much, but it's just enough.
Yeah, it just limits them from taking like a big bid, deep bid if they want to, and it makes it a little bit harder for them to include all the upgrades they want. So it's still a very competitive, viable list, but it also makes sure that it's reined in and it's not able to just completely push people into a deck and just screw them over real hard.
It's in that sense, the same problem that we see with like Blizzard Force and triple stabs in the past and whatnot. So hopefully, being able to play your own objectives against them will help a lot. And then for the last thing for Shadow Collective was Swoop Bikes went down 5. And I say for Shadow Collective, that is for Rebels and Republic as well. But they needed it. 65 points is great for a speeder unit because if you're taking 3 of these, it's 185 points to play Bombing Run and Breakthrough, pretty much.
Well, I think swoops are also like pretty underrated. They just haven't really taken off yet. I think we're gonna find with these new points cuts that some talented player is gonna take them to a big tournament, do really well, and then the community is gonna lose their mind and kind of because they have a lot of potential to do just that. When you line up those overruns, they do a fair amount of dice. And at 65 points, they're just a bargain. So,
and the other thing is that a lot of the community, it's always like you need to get off 2 overruns and a pistol shot to make them like worthwhile, which I don't think is particularly true because if you can get a compulsory move into 1 overrun attack into a pistol shot, that's still a double rainbow plus a double rainbow plus a red that is probably ignoring cover the entire way.
See, I tend to think about unit efficiency a little bit different than most of the community, and that doesn't necessarily make it right or wrong. It's just I tend to think about it different. If I'm bringing swoops, their job is not to do damage. Their job is to take your attention away from the rest of my army. And if they can do that for enough shots or enough rounds, and so that the rest of my army can accomplish what it needs to do, they've done their job, even if they don't take a unit or two. If they've just drawn your attention away so that I can go and do the rest of my plan to win the game, they've done their job. They don't necessarily need to trade up that 65 points, even if they only do a couple of wounds here or there, or they do this. As long as they accomplish the mission, it's worth it.
Yeah, and it's significantly easier to kind of value out now at 65 instead of 70.
Yep.
So that's, I think, they're in a very good spot now. Okay. Any other thoughts on Shadow Collective before we move to Republic?
No, I think Shadow Collective is looking pretty good. It's nice to see cuts to the Mandos. I honestly didn't expect anything for Shadow Collective, but I am happily surprised that they did.
All right.
So,
obviously, the one thing I was thinking about that I thought about the start, forgot, thought about in the middle, forgot again, and now I'm remembering for a third time is that I've been building lists, kind of talking on the Discord and everything as well, and it feels all like I'm really happy in terms of thematics for Shadow Collective now because a lot of the lists aren't just spam one unit with like a bus or something. It's a lot more of a collective. Like I have a list. This is one of the guys I was talking to at Rockytop, Hendo. I'll give him a shout out because I still love his list. Is he's doing Black Sun and swoops and a bus and trying out bounty hunters and stuff. I did ones with Black Sun and Mandos and bounty hunters and whatnot as well. So it's just nice to see them actually be like a bit more of a collective.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, when it's all pikes or it's all Black Sun, it doesn't feel like those episodes we saw, and so it's nice to see kind of that collective of a little bit of each kind of banding together as this, hive of villainy.
Yeah, no, it's I'm excited for him. All right, Galactic Republic. We shall start with our heroes here. Rex went down 5 points, and Padme went down 5 points. Both
Crazy.
of them. I think Padme was a lot more justified than Rex, honestly. Padme needed something after losing standby sharing and everything
Mm.
with Exemplar. I do think Rex is a little bit hotter than people are giving him credit for because Rex was still already
Oh, Rex is amazingly
really
good
good.
still.
He was
Um,
still really good. So
I mean, I think Rex runs into the same issue that a lot of range 2 heroes have, is that people are scared to get their units to range 2. Um, that's just generally people want the range 4 gun lines. As a whole, they'd rather be safe. They'd rather not take risks. And Rex is a risk, but he's a very, very good character.
yeah, I'm just worried about more hostage cheese with scouting party and everything.
Well, now we
Um,
can do that with Wicket too, right?
oh
So
yeah,
it's like,
I can do it my own, so it's okay. um, all right. Moving on to the ISP, also known as the Infantry Support Platform, also known as the Forgotten Unit of Republic, because I haven't seen these things since Adepticon of last year. All of their heavy weapons, the beam cannon, the missile pods, and the blaster cannons, all went down 15 points. So you can now bring a ISP with the base ISP is I'm looking at Separatists. Base ISP is 65 points. You can attach one of these weapons for 25 now, and you now have a 90 point platform when it was like 105 before, which puts it in a very good spot now, I think. Because you actually have like options to build like just a flat out fire support list with with double ISP and Cody and stuff. But yeah, so I think it's in actually a really good spot.
Yeah, so I've actually never played the ISP myself. I don't own them. I've played against them a fair number of times. But I think the ISP's issue was never points, in my opinion. It's a very fast unit, but from my play experience playing against it, the problem I always saw my opponent run into is if there is height 1 stuff on the table, or you've got a big city map or something that's got a lot of blockers, it can get boxed in really quick, just because it's so low to the ground. Um, and so I think that issue is, this doesn't help that, but it does make it a much more spicy list to run, for sure, at that cheaper points, especially with Cody out. So I'm curious to see if this actually makes waves, or if this will just be kind of a nice little niche bump.
So yeah, because I'm doing what I always do when we're talking about points and stuff, while still listening. You can make a 9 act list with Cody and a clone commander and a double ISP, and then a five phase ones each with like fives and a medic or a heavy weapon each, and probably do really well. But I do agree that still that like probably wasn't the problem, but I think they have a lot more options now. Um, I would have liked to see them get like hover air one instead of hover ground,
Hmm.
as you said, or speeder one or something. Yeah,
Yeah, some kind of something, whether it's an errata or a keyword change, just to help them get up and over terrain a little bit better, I think would help. Yeah, because I think their big issue is just they're kind of board dependent. Even with their low profile, like their low silhouette, trying to see over things for that fire support shot. Um, they're almost, I could be wrong. I need to hold them together to see a comparison, but I'm pretty sure they're smaller than like the mortars silhouettes now. Um,
I
so I
think
mean, they're just a very small profile.
I think they're very close. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Moving on to the other vehicles. The lat went down 5 points. That's
Yeah.
it. I
Okay.
don't think I still don't think you're gonna see them, but it
Um,
helps.
yeah, I would have liked to seen the lat get surge hit, like just straight surge hit. I think that would have helped it a lot.
Oh yeah,
Because the problem I think the lat runs into is unlike the bus, once it drops somebody off, it doesn't do anything the rest of the game.
yeah. It just kind of sits there.
Yeah,
It,
like even an Empire list, if you're not running it in clones, whether you're running it with something like that, it's just not an effective gunboat to really sit around the whole game and do enough. It throws low dice pools, doesn't surge hit, and has very little access to aims.
so yeah, I do agree. I need a little something extra, but 5 points is might push people into playing it. Um, okay, other one is the Nash Gunner, the like on the Fluttercraft,
mm,
the
the back
bowcaster
gun.
gun on the back that had like two black, two red, pierce one, impact one. Um, Went from 25 to 15 points. So it is now cheaper than the Bombardier, which in my mind is a crime. But um, so a Fluttercraft with the Nash Gunner now is only 70 points.
It's not bad.
But yeah, it's. I think it's actually. I thought the Nash was already, or the Fluttercraft was already playable, like
Yeah.
very playable.
So building on that, I know my fifth game. Adam and I both went to Rockytop, which was super fun. My fifth game was against Adam's. Hopefully, I'm pronouncing his last name right. Savarino, who played triple flutters with the Overrun bombers. And so it was a super fun game. And I've only played against flutters like maybe twice up to that point. And so it's an eye opener to see what they can do with somebody who knows like how to play them, get them in position, do the overruns. Yeah.
Yeah. I was the other thing with the Gunner specifically, um, this thing is like sleeper amazing because it is
Well,
unlike every other speeder. I was gonna say because hear me out. Every other speeder, unlike every other speeder, it has reposition.
yeah.
So it is able to turn a super tight corner
Hmm.
constantly, and it's able to just kind of sit in one spot and just kind of circle. So like like you move, you can move, reposition, and you'll have your butt gun facing the enemy, and you can shoot with your last action. Then your first action on your next activation, next round, you can shoot out the back, and then move, and you're in the same spot and ready to do it again next turn.
Yeah, I think for me, the fixed rear has always been difficult to pull off on a T-47. I mean, granted, the T-47s don't have reposition. Um, but even then, it's still extremely difficult to set up. It takes a lot of time and planning, um, and it's usually just not worth the effort.
Also,
Uh,
with the T-47 though, you're generally caring significantly more about the front arc than you are the back arc because that's where your
yes,
big gun is, and the Nefs don't have to deal with that, so they're able to just kind of focus on the back.
correct. Yeah, but I think honestly, if you're taking that bud gun, you're trying to line up fire support, which makes it even more set up to pull it off.
Yeah. Do they? I thought they had sharpshooter one. I don't know why, but that would make
I
it
don't believe so.
insane. They do not, which is a good thing because that'd be insane.
Yeah.
But no, I think I'm hopeful that there's going to be a lot more Floodcraft going around because I think it's actually a really fun unit and a really good unit. But time will tell. Um, okay, what else do we have for? Okay, so next one
Saber
is
tank.
the Saber Tank. Saber Tank went down 10 points, and the Beam Cannon went down 15. So this unit now is what 160 points, and that Beam
Mm-hmm.
Turret is only 15. So I think just alone the Beam Turret going down that much is crazy. Personally,
So remind me, Adam, you can't fire support anymore into each of the beams, correct?
yeah, the beams are not. You can't fire support into the beams, but it is still 3 attacks with 2 red.
Gotcha.
So it's still 3 suppression
Yeah,
a
it's,
turn.
it's still it's still 3 attacks, but you're not worried about 10 dice coming in on each attack
Oh
or
yeah,
something crazy.
it'd
So
yeah.
okay. So I think that's a fair change. to do, I think originally the beam was priced out for the fact that you could fire support all of those, which was just nonsense to begin with. So I think it was 30 points at the start?
31.
31.
No,
Okay.
just 30. Flat 30.
Yeah, flat 30. So I think since you can't fire support it anymore, bringing a 30-point heavy weapon is just a tough option on a unit that's already 100 and 75 points when it launched or something like that. So this is a nice change.
Yeah. I think with Cody back and everything, and then just kind of how everything else is shaping out, I think Sabres might make an appearance again, which has me excited because
Mm-hmm.
I think they're finally at like a points total where they're not reliant on having 3 standbys a turn to shoot with and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So I think they're very much in a good spot.
Agreed.
And then the very last one we have for clones, which is kind of surprising to me, was just that's the last one. Not that these units got a cut, because these units need a cut. It was the arc teams, like the full teams, the full arc squads went down 6 points. So they're now sitting at, was it 66, down from 72?
Yes.
So I think that puts them in a really good spot as well.
I think that's crazy to me. I think that was an overcorrection in my opinion. Yeah, 66 points. They are like, trying to do math in my head, that's 14 points more than a phase 2.
66?
66, phase 2s are 52 points, right?
Phase 2s are 60.
Jeez. Yeah, that's
phase
even worse.
I would say the phase 1s are the 52s.
Yeah, so I mean, I think they are so much more efficient, so much more bang for your buck. Like, it's never a question at this point anymore, in my opinion, on whether you take a full arc squad versus a phase 2. Like, you want fire support, just take a phase 1. But like full arcs are a good bang for your buck at 66 points. Like, there's no question.
You have that, and then you can throw the heavy, just the generic on for 97 points, or you can have a one-off with Echo for 108, which is probably the way you go. You just throw
You get that free scout on them, impervious, free aims when they move. Like, yeah.
Yeah, so you can bring 2 arc strikes with just the generic, and then a full arcs with Echo. That all total comes out to 218 points for a ton of token sharing and a really strong fire support starter and whatnot. And then, of course, you can throw on like transponders and targeting scopes and jetpacks onto
so
these.
Good.
I think that, yeah, I agree. But that was it for Republic, which means that we did not see Anakin or Wookiees.
I'm surprised Anakin wasn't raised. And Wookiees just need so much love, and they got ignored completely.
I think that you also, I'm kind of surprised that ATRTs and speeders and the Barks didn't swap their points. Because I think Bark speeders at 60 and then ATRTs at 55 would be a really good spot for both of them. But like, that's kind of menial. That's kind of minor compared to the others.
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, Republic. Hopefully, we'll see some more lists and everything. Instead of just seeing the same old spams. Though I think we will still see all the same old spams.
They have many choices now.
We'll see if they use them. All right, move on to the other Clone Wars faction, being CIS, who, to me, kind of seemed a little shafted, but I digress.
Good.
We will. So starting with the Super Tac droid. So just a generic one, not Kalani or Kraken. He went down 5 points to 90 points now, which I think is a good spot for him to be, because now you actually kind of like, if you're not, it kind of puts him in a good general spot, because like usually at 95, you were just okay with spending 5 more points to bring either Kraken or Kalani, depending on what you needed. But him being the generic being 10 points cheaper kind of helps more generalized builds or like things where you need everything in the pool kind of deal, because he's got the strategize and the direct and the override, whereas the other two are missing one or the other.
Yeah, so he's kind of that middle ground in between them that gives you both keywords, so you can kind of play both strategies.
Yeah, so hopefully, so he should see more play, hopefully. I don't have much else to say because I don't know CIS all that well. All right, Duke, yeah. Oh, sorry, what?
Yeah, I do think he is, out of all these changes, I think he's going to be one of the more choices that gets picked up now because of that cut. I mean, just in general in the history of this game, people like generic officers that are just cheap. Because if you want to build other things, it allows you to do that. And so he just gives you another option that isn't a very, very fragile T-series. So.
And then as for the other, one of the other commander choices, Dooku went down 10 points as well, which is good for him. It's probably not enough to counteract him losing choke, because I know a lot of his shenanigans revolved around choke. So it kind of feels like a one step forward, 2 steps back situation for him.
Yeah, I mean, I think every time we do a points cut, Dooku tends to get like a points drop. I think he's a hard cookie to really get right in that he doesn't have charge or relentless. And so you've got a force user that wants to get in there and really get a melee strike on people, but is slow and can't really get a free attack off of that move or that double move. And so he just takes time to set up in a faction that wants to hang back at range 4. And so I think that's the big struggle for him, is trying to build a party to get him up there. And then once he gets up there, he's got to make sure he's doing enough to make up all the time that he lost to actually charge in there. And so choke was really good to help him with that, because you don't need charge. You just do a free wound. And then you can also maybe, if you choke the heavy leader, you can move the unit closer to you, and then you get in even faster. So I think that's a hard one for him, just for the lack of charge.
Yeah, I do think he is the force user, the Sith dark side user. There we go. That suffers the most from losing choke, because like you can replace it pretty freely with every other Sith, but Dooku is the one that's like you're really gonna have to try and find something to fill that spot, or like leave it open. Which is gonna feel terrible.
I think you got to slap burst of speed on him anyway to solve his mobility issues.
Yeah, but he still has a third slot after that.
Yeah.
So you're not making use of everything anymore, unless you're running like battle meditation and invasion force.
There you go. Battle med. Another force power that's been left in the dirt.
All right, and then for the last hero that was touched for CIS, Grievous went down 5 points base, and his pistol is now free, which is nice, but that's also not the reason. His pistol not being free is not the reason he was not seeing the table.
Yeah, I think Grievous really needs Surge to hit real bad. I think his 1 pip hits so bad. Even if you get good rolls, if you're not surging on his attacks, it just feels rough.
Yeah.
So I think he just needs Surge hit, and he feels like he's okay. So him and Droidicus too.
All right, so I was like going into Droidicus here.
Going into Droidicus.
They also went down -5 points with, again, they are. That's not the problem. The problem is that Droidicus suck.
Yeah, I mean, you're bringing them for the suppressive keyword anymore into block line of sight, which just feels weird thematically. Like, they're a unit that just wants to kind of focus fire and pin something down. They just need Surge hit. they've always needed surge hit.
So
Like, they have a good dice pool, they just don't have a way to hit it consistently because of their AI.
I think you need to go farther than that and give them surge crit.
Woof.
So that they're actually something you have to consider.
I think that's crazy. If you're bringing them surge crit, they need to be at least like
Well, I mean, you raise them back up
85
5
points.
points. You raise them back up
85.
5-10 points.
They throw almost the same dice as a T-47.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
Like, if you surge crit
they're
on them
also-
and you can run 3 of them for that cheap, gross.
They're also extremely squishy compared to a T-47.
Yeah, but you can run 3 of them.
That's
So who
fair.
cares? And they have shields.
Yes, yeah. Yeah, I don't know. Crit, I feel like crit feels like in place, though. That's all.
Yeah, I mean, if you're going to give them crit, I would just give them, like, critical 2. That way they can punch through a little cover, but it's not the whole full pool.
That's fair.
Yeah.
Right.
And then I think we actually missed one.
Yeah, I was skipping back because I skipped
gotcha.
over the commandos because Grievous, my OCD, has put all the characters together. So BX commandos, the full squad went down 4 points and their deflector shields went down 8. So full squad is now 64 points and the deflectors are only 10. And the amount of BXs you see on the table is still probably going to be 0.
See, I disagree with some of this. I think BX strike team. I think full squads with those poison bombs and shields have a place. Now, I'm a firm believer in saboteurs, but I do think that there is a sleeper list there. I mean, a 64-point unit, and then you slap the poison bombs on them. Those poison bombs are disgusting. Like, they are a free 2 wounds on anything that breathes, basically, as long as you get 1.
Let's say for those of you that don't remember what poison does, poison is you poison 1 counter. I don't even remember completely. It's like you throw out a poison on someone.
So they throw out a mine, hits everyone at range 1, and then as long as that unit takes a wound, they gain a poison token. And at the end of that unit's activation, they take 1 wound.
Okay, so at the end of that unit's activation, they're taking a second wound. Yeah, so...
Yep. So it's basically, it's as long as you get 1 wound, it's going to be 2.
And that does only affect non-droid troopers. Yeah, organics. Yeah.
Yeah,
so non-droid troopers.
Not droids and not vehicles. But I think that the full squads with a bomb are so hard to churn through. And if you're running 3 of those because your B1s are so cheap, that's not a whole lot of points. And I mean, they can blow 3 bombs at a time. And so there's some really aggressive play there. Especially if your opponent is trying to worry about a stray Cad Bane or a Saj running around. And so if you're playing something like key positions or breakthrough, it's real gross.
I'll say that the strike teams, even without the cuts and the shields going down, you can run strike teams with the saboteur and deflector shields for 58 points.
Oof.
So no one plays Sabs, so that's why I don't expect to see it. In all honesty, but like
I do.
I think it might actually be fun. Now that you've convinced me, we'll go with that.
Yeah. I think a full squad. I mean, they have red saves, so I mean, if anything else, yeah, they do have red saves. So if they're taking some fire, they're going to save a little bit. But I mean, getting those poison bombs in good key positions with their Scout 3 and a full squad seems disgusting.
Yeah, so hopefully the same way. Yeah. Any other thoughts for CIS, or shall we move on to Rebels?
No, I think CIS, is doing fine. I think they're running into the same problem that Rebels had, which is the new cover system really kills white save units. Like, when everything gets full cover all game, I think the 2 white save factions are suffering from that.
Yeah, that's fair. All right. So for Rebels, going down the list, I guess we'll start with the Mandos that we referenced earlier. Mandalorian Resistance and Clan Ren, both of them went down 4 points. The named heroes, Tristan and Ursa Ren, both also went down 4 points. Their jetpack rockets went down 3 points, and then the generic heavy went down 4 points as well. So, for what that means in terms of points is you can bring Clan Ren now, just base, is 98 points, which feels great. You can bring a Mandalorian Resistance unit for like 97, I think it is, with just the duelist and jetpack rockets, or you can go all the way and go like situational awareness, emergency transponder, prepared supplies, and rockets and everything on that unit for 110 points, which is good.
Yeah. So I think overall, this brings Mandalorians finally out into a place where they're actually playable. Like I wouldn't say they're highly competitive, but they're definitely good. They're playable. I'm very excited for Indy Open this weekend because I do know that there's going to be a handful of Mandalorian list now. So I'm curious to see, no spoilers there, not giving any details, just saying that there are Mandos. So I'm curious to see how they do and kind of how this shakes out. So this is a nice change that I think the whole community wanted. They're very iconic, like unit, like just Mandalorians. Lots of people got into this game because they wanted to play Mandalorians. So this is a good call.
Yeah, I'm excited. I was thinking actually about bringing some Mandos to Indy Open as well. I decided not to because of other points changes in here, which we'll get to in a second. But they were up there on my list. All right. So I guess for the next one, we're going to go to. We're going to go to the heroes, but we'll start with Lando. Lando went down 10 points, and I think he is. If you're not running him, you're running Cassian, or you're running the generic at this point, like straight up. Because Lando is now at, 95, I think it is, base?
Yeah.
He's 95 points base, and he's a perfectly good unit base because the thing, because you're still getting those contingencies, he's still super tanky because he also has Uncanny Luck too. He doesn't have low profile, but like he still has Uncanny Luck too, and his weapon being range 3 instead of range 2 means that he's significantly safer in terms of high damage attacks. And of course, you get your contingencies and everything too. And people forget, I think, how freaking good his command cards are.
His command cards are excellent.
I think I genuinely think that the only person that has better command cards than him is like Han. And that's because Han's cards are like fundamentally game breaking.
Yeah.
Which is great.
Yeah, I think the free 2 standbys that he can throw out on himself and another unit at will is good from that 2 pip. His 3 pip with all in can really just make him tank. I had a game against David at a tournament in Cincinnati, and he was playing Yoda, and he got engaged to Lando, and I played all in, and Lando survived through 2 swings in melee.
Yeah, because against Yoda. You just call crits.
You just call block, and then you're like, all right, well, you got 4. Okay, I call block. I block 3. I get to add 2. Okay, I take, 1 damage. Okay, great, fine. Do the next one. And so it's just, if you save well on that turn, I mean, he can just be really tanky.
And then, of course, he's also still has covert ops and everything as well, so he still is able to. That with all in on recover can be a turn 1 box grab into a turn 2 win, essentially.
Yep.
But the other thing that I forgot about, Ace, there was a ruling change because of how the new Leia card for Leia and Wicket, the teamwork card, there was a change made in the forums where a question was asked, and the ruling now says that like you can order any unit, regardless of mercenary affiliation, to make Leia's card work. But what that indirectly does is that means that Ace up his sleeve can now order like Rebel Boba and all those heroes as well on the discard.
Yeah, which makes it very good. So
I would say that plus that him with Rebel Boba is really good now because like you can run like Making His Way, and then play some other card, get Boba his standby attack while he's sitting there in the middle of everyone, and then just pop Ace and have the immediate move away. So
Correct.
so I think that's a sneaky one that not a lot of people are going to know about, and I think that's what makes him like over the top now.
Yep, the card tricks up his sleeve. That's what makes Lando good.
Okay. All right. We have Leia now went down 5 points, which sorry.
It seems okay. I think she honestly could have gone down another 5. I think if it weren't for the Battle Force and the teamwork card that she's going to get with Wicket, I think outside of the Battle Force, 75 is still a lot for her, in my opinion. Her 3 pips just not what it used to be. I would have loved to seen a change to that. Her other 2 cards are good, but there's just a lot of Rebel heroes, and the 1 and 2 pip slots are very competitive. So
Let's say, I do agree that she probably could have gone down more. I also think it's okay that she didn't, because with Mando's going down and with Tauntaun's going down, which we'll get to in a second, both of those kind of like spamless generally ran Leia a lot from what I've seen in the past. So you're getting even more points off those lists now, which is really good for those. And I think like triple Mandos with Leia and Sabine can be a actually like really competitive list.
Mm-hmm.
So you got
still
that.
a lot of points.
It is a lot of points.
That's a lot of points.
But like all I'm saying is that you can fit 2 Mandos fully loaded to the gills for 110 points each. You can fit Sabine with her situational awareness, her grappling cord, prepared supplies,
154?
154.
Hey, I knew that off the top of my head.
You can fit that. You can get, I guess it is only 9x, but it's Leia with 2 vets and medium blasters. Vets have their heavy. You got Sabine fully loaded. You can do Clan Ren fully loaded, and the 2 Mandos fully loaded, and then Leia with improvise and vigilance for 797.
I think Rebels are running into the issue that I've been running into for a couple of months now, which is if they want to take anything with any kind of meat behind it, you trying to break the 9x ceiling is tough. Like they just can't get back up to 10 very well.
Yeah, but I also think that they can survive at 9 now with between pass acts and everything else.
They can, but I think that's hurting them on the win rates a little bit, is the fact that they can't get to 10 acts.
That's fair.
It means their Jedi can't wait to go last, their Tauntaun units can't wait to go last. So even with the pass, it doesn't change that.
That's fair.
Especially if you go up against other units that are playing 11.
Yeah, that's fair. Okay, so on to Commander Luke Skywalker, C-Luke. He's down 10 points, which brings him to 150 flat, which is pretty insane when you consider that he can bring Force Push, in my opinion.
I mean, he's the same cost as... He's 5 less points than Anakin. And he's the same cost as Asajj. So, yes, I think actually he should have gone down more, in my opinion. But
yeah,
yeah, he can bring Force Push, but Anakin dies like a wet noodle. He 6 black in melee is just not real consistent. So his melee weapon's not usually very consistent. And then when he does get in melee, you risk the fact that he just doesn't surge and he dies right there. I do like that he's down at 150. That gives you an option to kind of run like a double dive list. Like you could run a Commander Luke Sabine or a Commander Luke Ahsoka and not feel like you've spent half your points into that because you haven't.
Yeah. I will say that him being 150 now compared to Op Luke's 195 puts him in a spot where I think he's actually a consideration for bringing Luke, because like before it was kind of like you're already bringing Luke, might as well spend the extra points to get just the better Luke. But now the budget version is actually like cheap enough to be considered.
Yes. because it's almost a whole act. Well, it is. It's a whole act less. You're like, oh, okay, I can pad up an activation by not taking operative loop.
As for the last hero change, being probably the most unexpected thing in this entire points change, is that Cassian's gun is now free. So what this essentially means is that Cassian got a 10 points cut, which I don't understand. I understand, because it's like, if you're looking, everyone's weapons have pretty much gone free across the board.
Not everyone's, but most
but not
people.
everyone's. But like, there was a lot of those. But Cassian wasn't the one that needed it.
No, I do think it's nice. Like, I'm not gonna say it's bad. It basically, I mean, I think a big portion of it going down, the thinking is just that it's an auto take. Like, you auto take his gun. You never don't put his gun on him. It's the same reason they brought Jin's gun down to 0. It's why they brought the Pathfinder gun down to 0. It's an auto take. Like, it's just, you automatically are always going to take it because there's no reason not to. So it basically made Cassian 110 points, which made him 5 more points than Han. This just brings him down to a flat 100.
Brings him to flat 90.
Or flat 90, sorry. Yeah, so it brings him down to a flat 90 from 100. Because he was always going to be that.
Yeah, so him and K2 together is like 170 points, because you're pretty much always bringing K2's gun as well.
Yeah, which is roughly what Han and Chewie are. So I think that's fair.
It's
like, and 20. Han's honestly arguably got better cards.
That's like 40 points cheaper than Han and Chewie.
Yeah. So and when you pay for Han, you're paying for the Pierce 2 and for his cards.
Yeah, that's fair.
So
yeah. But no, I still think that you're paying for that, but I don't think it's enough to warrant him over Cassian right now, straight up. Because like, I think I kind of referenced it earlier, but like, I think you're either running Cassian, Orlando, or the generic in terms of points.
See, I disagree with that. So I played Jin and Cassian for a very, very long time, like probably an 8-month stint. The amount of people I've seen who play Cassian just wrong, or just don't get enough efficiency out of him, is very high. And that's not a knock on players. That is a knowing when it's time to switch to the pistol, rather than just sitting back in the sniper all game. If you sit back in the sniper all game, great, you're getting those wounds, but there is a point where you need to go into the pistol and you need to put that pressure on. And so I think that he is a unit that does take some practice. You gotta kind of figure out his kit. I think lots of people are going to see his sniper. They're going to hear lots of podcasters who say Cassian's an auto take, and they're going to slap him into every list, which is fine. But then they're going to just either sit back and sniper and snipe all game and not get the most efficiency out of him, or they're just going to run him up the gut and get killed either way. So I think there's a fine line between trying to figure out his kit. His danger sense isn't nearly as good as Jin's. He's only Courage 2, so you do have to be careful with that, because if you take something like Duck and Cover on him, like, you're risking that. But also, if you're just sitting and aiming and shooting all game, that doesn't do a whole lot for the objective.
That's awesome.
It's good wounds. It's very, very consistent wounds, more than just about anybody in the game. But also, he needs to be up there playing objectives at some point. So, yeah, for me, I think it's a good cut. I wouldn't agree that it's too hot, but I'm a Rebel player, so at heart.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I do agree with all of that. I think, yeah, it remains, I would say it remains to be seen, but I do think that, like, you're going to see him too much.
Yes. Agreed.
All right, we'll go down to the core selection, the SX-21 Trooper, also known as the Authorian. Went down 2 points. Now, I will fully digress here that my opinion is biased about this unit, but I think that this is like the best heavy for Rebel Troopers right now.
I would agree with that. I do agree with that. It's funny that these just went down 2 points because, like Adam and I just went to Rockytop, and I brought 3 SX-21 Rebel Troopers, and they didn't carry the list, but they did quite a bit. Ended up getting me third place, so it's funny to see them drop 2 points. Out of all the heavy weapons that Rebel Troopers have, it's the only one that got cut. Z6s didn't get any change. The DLTs didn't get any change, which I kind of understand not changing the DLTs, but yeah.
I will say I also didn't. It was the MPL also not going down. The ion gun was also
Yeah, the ion gun didn't get any change.
Like, so so it's like the reason I championed these guys before is because like they were created a very cost effective unit, because before these points changed, you could just run SX-21 with the captain. You're throwing 5 black, 2 red, 2 white at range 2, or 6 black at range 3. You have nimble and you have suppression mitigation, all built into this unit for 64 points. And now that has gone to 64. Or 64 points down to 62, sorry.
So it doesn't... The crazy part to me is you're throwing 2 red, 2 white at range 2. The only difference with Impact 1, the only difference between the SX-21 shotgun and the MPL ion is that one of them is exhaustible and range 3 and rolls 2 less dice and throws an ion, but it's 5 points more. Like, that just seems crazy to me. Like, why would I pay 5 points more for something I have to recover and I'm throwing less dice? Like, yeah, there's a range band difference there, but it's normally a single movement to kind of close that gap. So, yeah, I don't know.
So that was the one that was surprising me. I would have liked to see like critical 1 on the Z6 as well. I think that would have been a really fun way to buff it. Because that's giving you that surge conversion you need. And it's kind of like the reason you brought the DLTs, but like that would have put the Z6 in a good spot.
Yep.
But yeah, the SX-21 going down to 13 means you can go for 74 points, which, just so everyone is aware, is the same points as a Rebel Veterans unit with a heavy. You can bring the SX-21, you can bring the Rebel Trooper Captain, you can bring prepared supplies, situational awareness, and smoke grenades, and create this monster of an objective unit, because they don't care about suppression. They are going to be tanky enough to survive, and they're going to be able to get a good shot off on something that's coming to contest this intercept point or key position. And
yeah, they are a very efficient unit when you throw the captain and you've got situational awareness and you've got dodges for them, and then you've got the SX-21. I mean, they book it. And then when they get there, they throw 9 dice. So
yeah, I think they're just really good. And of course, you don't even have to run them like that, because it's very fair to run them as like a 67 point unit with just prepared supplies and the captain and the trooper, or even just 62. So like, if I was honestly, like, for me, I am now running in most of my lists that I've built out. It has been 2 Rebel Troopers with the SX and the captain, and then 2 vets with their heavy, and 2 Mark IIs. Because it's 6 acts for 350 points, roughly, up to like 375 if you load up the vets and the troopers a little bit more. But like, it's a super cost-effective core selection now, which is what I think is Rebel's main weak point.
All right, I don't want to cut you off, Adam, but let's.
I'm sorry.
Back on the road. Adam's got a soapbox built up. Those are his. They are guys.
They are my babies. I apologize for dragging it on so much. All right. Okay. Tauntauns went down 5 points, which I think is putting them in a good spot again. It's pretty much what they needed. It's like what they needed, because they were already good.
Yep.
At 95 naked, and now they're 90 points naked, which is what you want probably running them as now. So yeah, I mean, like, I don't think there's much else to say besides good stuff.
Yeah.
All right, the land speeder.
Yeah,
I'll say the last Rebel unit the land speeder got some cuts, which are really nice. The RPS gunner, which is throwing a rainbow at range 2 to 4 with impact 2, went down 10 points from 31 to 21. Then both of their heavy weapons on the front went down 5 points or 6 points. The medium blaster, the one that's 1 to 3, 4 black, went down 5 points, and then their ion blaster, which is a bistant gun, essentially went down 6 points.
Hmm. Yeah, I think these are all good. The land speeder has always been a good unit, in my opinion. It's just suffered from being a little too expensive from what it does. It's kind of a glass cannon. It flies in there, wants to avoid taking damage, and dish out a ton itself, and get a unit in place to really deliver some punch. So it's a good unit. You just got to be careful with it. And so I think it's always been too expensive for most people to feel safe fielding it.
Yeah, so, but now you can run, like, for example, the build that I always run with the land speeder when I run the land speeder, which I do probably too much, is land speeder with hotshot pilot, which is giving sharpshooter 1, and then the rifle gunner, which is just 2 white, range 1 to 3, and unstable R5, which extra attack. And then now the Mark II medium blaster for 4 black, range 1 to 3 is 96 points, which is a very, very good speeder. But, yeah, I think that's all you have to really say about it. That it's a good speeder now. I think Rebels have their own. Rebels have their own very competitive speeder in the heavy spot instead of the support slot.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah. So I'm excited for Rebels. I think there's going to be even more lists popping up than there were before, even though Rebels didn't really have a meta.
This is all very hopeful changes. I'm excited for that. I do think there were some Rebel units that got glazed over. Looking at Wookiees in particular, I would have loved to seen something to fix maybe the scale. They've just got hurt by the tenacity and the training slots going up in points. Their scale got nerfed. And then the wound allocation really hurts them a lot too. And so it would have been nice to see something to put them back on the map. Yeah.
Yeah, and then, okay, I guess if we're talking a little bit about things that we've forgotten that I totally glazed over, Mando needs a little bit of help, I think, which would be nice. Just because...
Yeah, I would have liked to see him just go down in points a little bit.
Yeah, just slightly, just bring him to a good spot.
Yeah, and I mean, Grogu himself is like something that's nearly unplayable. So I think that needs more errata.
But overall, I think solid like B plus, very good passing grade. I guess, and now for the last faction that we have to talk about, the big old battle boogeyman, Empire. We'll save the expected ones for last and talk about the fun ones first. So we'll start with Callus went down 5 points, and then his bow rifle, I think it is, his armament went down 10 points. Yeah, so effectively, this unit has gone down 15 points. So essentially, you're just getting his arsenal weapon for free now. It's kind of what it boils down to.
I think that's great. Callus is a super fun unit. I think he's super undervalued for what he does. Yeah, I'm happy to see those changes.
I think Callus, I know they fucked up a little bit in our local meta, but Callus Double Bounty is definitely in a very good threatening spot right now. Because contingencies, being an extra linebacker, all that. So
yeah, I can also see some Callus Iden list. Callus's 3-pip is really, really good. It's a very good gunline card. And so Iden, you can kind of alpha strike and then go straight into Callus's 3-pip. And so I think that'd be a really good army.
I didn't think about that at all. That's kind of gross.
Yeah. Yeah, his 3-pip's disgusting, especially if you play it with mortars where you've got suppressive weapons. Because whenever you're shooting things with suppressive weapons, normally if it's Courage 2, it's getting 2 observation tokens after every shot.
That's really good. Yeah, I'm excited to see that. Um, all right. As for the other hero changes, General Veers went down 5 points, which I
We
think
salute
is
you.
I think is not enough. Again, because like at
I think
least
it's fine.
like I think like it's fine, but like Leia has a place in the list and everything, and where I don't see the list that you run Veers in over an officer.
I think Veers is fine. And the reason I think he's fine is because his 3-pip is still better than people give it credit for, and so is his 2-pip. Especially with speeder bikes, Blizzard Force going away, I think makes it or Operative Vader going out of. We'll talk about that later, coming out of Blizzard Force, but I think that means that Veers in a vehicle list is much more likely, and his 2-pip basically making vehicles kind of like a saber tank for a
Yeah,
turn,
that's fair.
still pretty good.
I would say the other thing that the one thing that Tyler forgot to mention in the article is that the Imperial officer, the generic one, did also go back up 5 points. So that officer is now 50 points, whereas Veers is 70. So I was thinking that the officer is still 45, which is kind of like a farther pull. But like, I think it's kind of reasonable actually to just upgrade an officer to Veers now in a lot of lists.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
So
because if you're doing an officer with Binox, it's basically 58 points now, whereas Veers is what, 70?
Veers is 70. Yep.
Yeah, so I mean, you're getting his command cards. You're getting a little bit extra with him. It is a little bit of an upgrade, but I mean, you're getting the command cards. The command cards are not bad. They're certainly not. Um, so
Yeah. All right. Moving on from there, I think we'll jump down to the supports next before we talk
we got
about
one
the
more
other
character to
changes.
talk about.
I'll say like this one I feel like is kind of expected. All right, but yeah, sure. My brain is a little fried. I don't know why.
You're good.
Boba Fett, Imperial
Boba Fett.
infamous bounty hunter, not Dad Bod Boba. Boba went
Boba
up
Fett.
10 points to 130, which is where he should have been before they decided to cut him multiple times.
I'm still of the mindset he needs to cost about as much as Din does. Like fully kitted.
I agree.
Boba needs to be more like 145, 150,
Well,
if not a little higher.
if
Like,
you're running like flame projector always, for example, you can also run like Hunter and Emergency Transponder, brings him up to 145 points. Just about in that ballpark. I'm
it's
not
still
sure.
cheaper than Sabine.
That's also true. I'm not sure if that's more speaking to Boba being too cheap or those characters being too expensive, though.
Yeah, agreed.
Um,
But yeah, I think the fact that he's got all 6 of those command cards, still rolls 5 dice at range 2 with no cover, Pierce 1, in a game where everybody gets cover. And then if he kills that unit and it's a character unit, oh, I got a free victory token right here.
Yeah.
Found it on their body.
So yeah, no, I do agree. I do think with everything else that's changed because before we'll more in depth later, but like Dark Troopers went up, and then mainly that actually puts him in I think probably all right position.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, the one core trooper, we'll say Blizzard Force for the end because that's where the core trooper changes at. So as for support units, for the Dewbacks, their Flamer went down 5 points to a total of 10 points, and their RT-97C went down 5 points to also total 5 points. I don't know if that does enough to make those C play over the T-21 for the Dewback, but
yeah, I think those are fine changes. I think that's not a bad thing. The dewbacks, in my opinion, I mean, there's the T-21. You take it because it's a cheap gun, and it's got critical. Like those are the 2 reasons. So, I mean, they're a melee unit. Like, primarily, you want to lock these guys up into your opponent just because that's where most of your dice is. I mean, yeah, they'll throw some early shots, but I don't know that you want the other guns just because you're trying to pop a few range shots before you run into melee. So making them cheaper doesn't fix that.
The other thing I'm considering though is that for the flamer specifically, with the previous CRB changes being that these dewbacks can't withdraw from melee to melee now, you can run the flamer instead and kind of get like a pseudo charged effect on that withdrawal move, because you still get your relentless attack. So you're going to charge into something, hit them with your 3 or 4 red, depending if you have tenacity or not, and 3 white and suppressive. And then next turn, you pull him out. You withdraw him out, like last act, and you flame a unit nearby, or the unit you were just in, and kill that unit, and then charge in the third thing. And you kind of have that pseudo effect of what they had before.
That's not a bad call.
I don't know if people are going to run it, though. I don't know if it's enough.
I like that idea. I would run that.
I think it's good, but I'm not sure. It just might not be. It might just need a little bit more. Right. E-Webs went down 5 points, which is all right.
Solid.
I think I wouldn't have minded seeing like their generators be free or something, but E-Webs at 50 points is runnable, is usable.
I'm still of the mindset that they are a little underplayed. I mean, I think mostly Empire players, again, like to play that range 4 band. E-Webs don't fit into that. They're only 4 health. But I mean, a move and a standby from them is still a very long range move denial, and they throw solid dice.
They do.
So
I don't think it's enough to make the community like. It's fine. I don't think it's enough. I mean,
you can run 3x again and throw 15 points that all surge crit for 150 points. If I could take that in Rebels, I'd take it in a heartbeat.
Yeah, me too. That's fair. That's a good way to look at it. Yeah, I guess the last heavy weapon change, last change before Blizzard Force, is the Dark Troopers. Their assault cannon went up 7, and then their frag launcher went up 5, which brings them to a total of 12 points per unit as you're normally seeing them.
Not enough.
Yeah. So a full unit now is 195 points. Because I'm saying full unit as you're bringing both of the range heavies.
Right.
It's I agree, it's not enough, because now instead of running like the example I heard on Fit Trooper was double bounty, double dark troopers. You're now running like single darks or double darks with the single bounty hunter, like Boba Fett. So,
and if you factor in that both of them can activate twice, you're essentially getting 4 activations for 100 points each. That throws 8 black dice at range 3, has full armor, red saves. I mean, that's essentially just being like, oh yeah, I have 4 Han Solos, all for 100 points, and they also throw this massive pool of dice at you. And they also have red saves, and I can put surges on them if I want. And free tokens, depending on if I'm Imperial Remnant or not. Like, it's still
gross.
Completely out of hand. They needed at least a 20-point increase. Minimum.
I do agree with that. I guess we'll hop into... So, the only points change for Blizzard, and the last points change here, is that their heavy response units, the Stormtroopers that are bringing double heavies, went up 10 points. So this unit is now something to consider. You're still bringing it in Blizzard Force, like always, because it's just still that good for its efficiency.
Well,
you have to. Like,
you don't have to.
You don't have to, but you have to in quotations, because it's like there's no reason not to. Because it's still 84 points for a unit that's showing like 3 red, 3 white at range 4.
Right.
With precise 1 and a name usually. So,
Yeah,
It's
and then the officer went up 5 points too, technically, so that
yeah,
affects Blizzard Force. And then Operative Vader was removed, so that is muy bueno, muy bueno.
just makes sense now.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. So that is it for points. That was a lot. We've been rambling for a little bit. But I do kind of want to touch on, see if we can make some hot topic meta predictions or something, like kind of like how we see
Ooh.
this is gonna go.
All
Um,
right.
so I'm just gonna. So you kind of mentioned already with darks, and we're kind of saying it, but like darks are still gonna be a problem.
Yep.
I don't think that's changed. I think for Blizzard Force, you're now running. There's two Blizzard Forces that are going to come out to play, and neither of them are as good as the Blizzard Force we know. You're either running like the ATSD version of that Blizzard Force, so like an ATSD with like 4 bikes and Veers, your 2 HRUs and like 2 Snows, which is still a good army. It's
Yep.
not the same tier as it was without Vader. Um, or you're seeing Commander Vader with like 6 Snows and a couple speeder bikes or something. And I think that one's
Yeah.
significantly more fun, but I don't think it's nearly as good.
I think it's significantly more fun. I think it's just as good, and I don't think it will see as much play because it's harder to play.
Yeah.
But I do agree. I think the ATSD is going to be the more predominant list that people play. I think people will see darks. Double bounty is going to be the same as it always has been. Boba Fett's real good. And bounty hunters are just an attractive option for people to play. They're fun. They look cool. They seem cool. They have cool cards, and so.
So like it's gonna be bounty hunters. Like meta hasn't changed for Empire all that much. It's just gotten
No,
slightly worse.
I don't think the list building has changed for Empire that much. I mean, the reason the lists were the way they were for Empire is because this just tailors everything to their playstyle anyway. Just sit back at range and shoot.
As for the other Galactic Civil War part, Rebels, I again don't think anything has changed for list building in the sense that Rebels already didn't have a meta, kind of like a defined idea or a meta or anything. So this just makes it just that now, but more.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, I think you'll see a lot of people fall back to Echo Base. I think that's going to be a popular one until Ewoks drop. I think we're not going to really see a solid list archetype. I do think once Ewoks come out, that's going to change. There's just going to be some very solid things that people can do with Ewoks. So I think once you can start running 10, 12 acts of fur, it's a whole different game.
Yeah, because you can hit 12x pretty reasonably. I was thinking that is a good point. Yeah.
Yep.
I think Republic is actually going to be the one that sees the most change. We'll move into our Civil War factions here. Republic, I think, is going to one that's going to see the most change in that I think there's going to be there's going to be more archetypes that pop up. Because like Yoda's still good. Annie is still good with like Barks and everything. But I think you can make a case for running like Cody with the saber tank, or just Cody vehicles, or Rex with stuff now, or kind of like there's options.
Or Padme again, yeah.
Or Padme
I
again.
do think, this fills a lot of holes where Cody came out and people were looking for things to run him with, but all the vehicles were just kind of overtuned, or undertuned, I guess, or they were just too expensive. And so this kind of fills that slot of trying to figure out what vehicles do I run with Cody. I really like Cody. I want to run that. I think this fills that.
As for Separatists, I don't know. You didn't really see much change.
I don't know that we'll see much change for the competitive scene. I would love for Separatists to like find some crazy off the wall stuff and prove me wrong. Like BX full squad Sabs. Let's make it happen.
I would love that too. And then as for our last quote unquote faction, Shadow Collective, I think their balance is really good now. I think they're actually in a really good spot, both like balance wise and thematically, because I was talking about this with a couple of people, but it's like Shadow Collective now feels like an actual collective, because I think in a lot of these lists, you're not just doing, as I said, you're not doing just a straight spam. You're not straight BC spam or pike spam. You're mixing the units now, like you're kind of quote unquote supposed to, which makes me really excited.
Yeah, I do think we'll see probably Gar Saxon with a handful of Mandos. I think that will be the predominant new thing. And I only say that because the Rocket Alpha strikes are so good.
I think it'll be that, and I think it'll be like a bounty hunter with pikes in the case of Bosk or Black Sun in the case of Bane,
and maybe some cheap swoops, just because they're cheap.
Yeah, and stuff like that. So I think they have options, and they're actually going to be starting to mix units, and I'm excited. And I think it's going to be a good time.
Heck yeah!
Overall, points changes and errata changes. I think I would give it a solid B minus, where you're still getting your 3.0 GPA and everything, but it's could have done a couple things better.
I would agree with that. Yeah, and honestly, we've got a big weekend this weekend where we'll see points kind of in the wild for kind of the first time at a big event. So, we can come back here in a couple weeks after Indy Open and see kind of were we right, what got shaken up in ways that we didn't expect, and so I'm very excited to see that.
All right. Do you have anything else you want to talk about, or do you have a fun life advice, Matt?
Ooh, fun life advice. My fun life advice: do dishes as they happen. Don't let them pile up. It's a trap. In the words of Admiral Akbar, if you let them pile up, it's a trap.
You heard it here first. Do your dishes.
Do your dishes.